To fight.
All right, that's Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby telling reporters there in the briefing the U.S. troop deployments, if indeed they were to happen, would be purely defensive, as White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki is updating the press on sanctioning Russian leaders and even Putin himself as the Russian offensive in Ukraine continues to carry on. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips.
And I'm Terry Moran. A senior defense official tells ABC News this afternoon that Russian strikes that are devastating civilian areas are happening at a greater rate and a greater scale, and it appears Russians are now recruiting Syrians to come and fight in Ukraine. They have experience in street fighting. And joining us now with the latest from the ground in Ukraine is ABC's senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky. He's been there for a while, along with former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense and ABC News National Security and Defense Analyst Mick Mulroy, along with ABC News' Alex Perchet. So, Aaron, you're on the ground there, and I want to just ask you, how is it going? Kyiv, I understand, has come under increasing bombardment. What are you seeing? What can you tell us?
This is mainly on the outskirts of Kyiv and some of the communities 10, 15, 20 miles just outside the city. There's been some heavy fighting. The Russians seem to be bogged down there, Terry, and the Ukrainian military is fighting them so they don't advance any closer to Kyiv. But here's what I can't work out. On one hand, and we just heard it from the Pentagon, the Russians are bogged down. They're several days behind where they thought they'd be. They're having morale problems, logistical problems, and they have not advanced much beyond their existing positions onto the capital. So on one hand, Putin's losing. On the other hand, though, while we're all focused on the capital, and maybe rightfully so, the Russians are making some strategic gains down in the south. They have bombarded Mariupol. They've bombarded Mykolaiv. They've made some gains in Melitopol. They apparently have their sights on Odessa. That gives Putin some strategic gains. He gets his land bridge to Crimea. He gets some of the agricultural richness. He gets the seacoast and that key trading route. And so maybe those are some objectives that he considers to be a win. And we still don't know, Terry, what's in Putin's head.
So, Mick, let's bring you into the conversation on that. What's inside Putin's head? Really, that is the $50 million question. As you look at things right now, and as you hear John Kirby, Jen Psaki, I was even talking to Kira Ruddock, who's a member of the Ukrainian parliament, and she was saying that Putin has no idea what's going on in Ukraine, that he has Russian forces turning against him, that there are soldiers apologizing for their actions, that he had no idea Ukrainians were going to rise up and fight like they are. And she makes it very clear that Zelensky, other members of parliament, Ukrainians, they're not leaving, and that they believe they can actually win this fight.
So, Kira, I think that's exactly right. I don't think President Putin expected this level of resistance. Just to give you an example, the Battle of Kyiv, as Aaron was talking about, that is going to be enormous, it's going to be brutal, and it's going to be long. By comparison, the Battle of Stalingrad, the most bloodiest battle in World War II, lasted 5 months. Kyiv is enormous. It's larger than New York City. It goes back to the beginning of the Middle Ages, so its complexity is going to be intense. And the Ukrainians have proven their willingness to fight. They've stockpiled weapons, ammunition, food, fuel for months and months. This is going to be intense. I don't know if the Russian soldier has the will to fight this. And that's why we're seeing these direct, brutal attacks against civilians. Their objective might be to simply level Kyiv. But I would tell you, I would imagine the Ukrainians would be fighting from the rubble. This is not going the way President Putin and his military leaders expected. But they have proven that they were willing to do anything to make up for their military shortcomings.
So, Terry and I were just talking about this, Mick. If Russians don't have the will to finish this off and Putin wants to keep pushing them, what could happen?
So that might be one reason why we're talking about Syrian fighters being brought in. He maybe doesn't trust the will to fight in his own men. They're all conscripts. Essentially. So they probably don't want to be there, probably don't want to join the military in the first place. And now they're seeing that they're fighting people that look, quite frankly, like their own families, their own grandmothers, and they're losing, quite frankly. They've taken incredible casualties, some of it because of the weapon systems we managed to get in there, but a lot of it's just the Ukrainian will to fight. We're also seeing a large number of former military from the West going to join the fight. So this does seem to be going in the wrong direction if you are looking at this from the Russian perspective. But the one thing they do is they will use anything at their disposal. And that already includes cluster bombs, thermobaric weapons. We should just hope they don't resort to chemical weapons, because they can be used in these very urban areas where people are trying to take shelter underneath in the subterranean spaces, because that's where the chemicals settle. So that we might see that during this battle for Kyiv or other heavily populated areas.
Well, there are already investigations going on of the potential, or actual, you can see them, war crimes that are happening, this indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas. And Alex, I want to go to you on the question of another front, as it were, in this war, and that is the sanctions front, the sanctions that are coming down so hard on Russia, that are being imposed across the world. And I guess I understand that in Congress, there's unity there, rare moment of unity there. It seems Republicans and Democrats on the House and Senate tax writing committees, those are the committees that would have jurisdiction over this, are coming together on another package of sanctions, a bipartisan legislation that would sanction Russia, again, a law, not a presidential action. What's in that, and how big a deal is it?
Remarkable, because we've seen the White House kind of hesitant to levy sanctions on Russian oil and gas. But again, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi indicated late last week that she was all for it. We've seen Republicans for weeks now, including Senator Ted Cruz, calling for a ban on Russian gas and oil. And so we have this announced deal, this bipartisan legislation that seeks to punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine and basically ban the import of energy products from Russia, and it would also suspend normal trade relations with both Russia and Belarus. And so, this is a very, very targeted affront. Again, you've heard the line from the late Senator John McCain saying that Russia is essentially a gas station masquerading as a country. This is one of their biggest export, and so a continued call from these legislators on Capitol Hill to specifically target Russian oil. And some other provisions of this legislation, it would give the president the authority to increase tariffs on products from Russia and Belarus. It would also aim to suspend Russia's participation in the World Trade Organization. So again, a very targeted look at trying to attack Russia's purse here.
That's right, and so much of it comes from oil and gas and energy. And Aaron, one more to you. We just heard Mick describe the potential of Russia as it struggles, now unleashing more bombardments and maybe even some kind of chemical weapons attack. And I just want to ask about these humanitarian corridors that Russia is supposedly inviting people to take out of the cities they're sieging. Are those working? What can you tell us about any agreement to secure them, when so far people going down them have been killed?
In fact, the Ukrainians called the Russian offer a cynical ploy, Terry, because the only safe passage out they were offering was along a route to Russia or to Belarus, and that's not where Ukrainians would feel comfortable going. You're right, they tried a couple of times over the weekend to arrange ceasefires. The Ukrainians said the Russians just kept shelling and the evacuations had to be halted, and you could see it and hear it as people were waiting for the bus, the explosions very close by, and a soldier saying, "This is not safe. We don't want you to get shot." Other civilians trying to flee north of Kyiv, they also came under bombardment. There was another round of talks today in Belarus between the Ukrainians and the Russians. They apparently, while there were no breakthroughs, at least decided that perhaps they could work out some logistics for humanitarian corridors. There's a real concern in the bombarded urban centers, Terry, that humanitarian aid cannot get through, and people are really going to suffer as a result.
That's the nature of siege warfare, which it looks like is what we're heading towards. Aaron, Alex, and Mick, thanks to all of you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.